So it's most people who find us are typically already on the path of personal discovery, and they know there's something more and they do not know how to access it. They've hit like this ceiling and they're like, I don't know what else to do. I've read all these books. I've done all the things. I've done all the biohacking. I've done all the things that I can do, but there's still something missing, and I can't quite get there on my own.
I'm Annemarie McQueen, journalist and proud 50-ish woman, and we are here looking for the true truth in perimenopause, menopause, midlife, and beyond.
Opening our minds to other possibilities is not always easy.
Hotflash Inc.
You're all woman to me. All right, Annemarie.
Welcome to the Hotflash Inc podcast. I am your host and the founder of Hotflash Inc. I'm a journalist. My name is Annemarie McQueen. Thank you so much for being here. A little departure today. Sometimes I'm pitched interviews with people, and sometimes I just get a little glimmer that I should talk to them. And I had been very interested in plant-based medicine in relation to women going through this heroine's journey of the midlife shift. And so I had wanted to interview someone about it, and I was looking for the right person. And then I thought, you know what, I think these are the right people. Rob Grover and Gary Logan are founders of the Journeymen Collective, an alternative wellness company that hosts luxury guided magic mushroom retreats in the mountains outside of Vancouver, BC. I'm talking to them because it's hard to find people to talk about this, because I think there's women who are interested in this, because I have personal experience with this, which you'll hear about in the podcast. They have hosted everyone from entrepreneurs and CEOs to athletes, performers, couples, and small groups. All people who are interested in the highest level of personal and professional development and discovery. They've been doing this since 2018. And we talk all about wanting more and realizing there's more. And these are luxury retreats. So they're going to describe to you if this is something you want, how you start looking for it, and how you make sure you find the right place to do it. Thank you so much for listening. How open-minded are you? And if you've ever heard someone talking about this, please share the podcast with them. I appreciate so much you being here and listening. And by the way, I spoke to these guys when I was really grieving the death of my father, and I was just listening back, editing, and I choked up a bunch of times because they have experiencing the loss, the grief that comes with the loss of a parent as well. It was a very important conversation for me to have about what that experience was like with people who just hold space and let you have it, because that doesn't happen a lot when you're grieving. So I hope you enjoy my conversation with Rob and Gary. I really want to go on one of their retreats. I really do. They sound awesome. Enjoy. Obviously, the first question is, how did you guys get into guiding these retreats?
Mhm. It's been many, many decades of inner work, training, looking at self, and learning a lot about the human condition, what it's like to actually be a human being on a speck of dust that's floating through space, and there are 8 billion ants known as human beings that are doing this thing called life, love, and relationships and business. And we, as I mentioned, we had done a lot of the inner work and and it's always happening. So, and we're devoted to it. And Gary's mom, who lived with us for 3.5 years, she decided very quickly, within about 3 weeks, to transition. She passed away. And even with all of the tools that we had, we still couldn't quite shake the grief and depression. So about a little bit more than a month after she passed away, this little tiny fairy human came into our lives. She's a petite little woman, and she came into our lives and she said, I just went on a quest, and I think it might benefit both of you greatly. And so she told me a little bit about it, and she said there were magic mushrooms, psilocybin involved, and I immediately scoffed at the idea, because had experienced mushrooms in university. I knew what they were about, and I had no true knowing of what they were actually about. It was in university, I had gone on trips. I had not gone on an inner journey or a quest, as the medicine men that we were working with called them. And that's where everything changed after that very first journey. I found my joy again. The depression that had ensued upon myself was gone. I woke up every day asking the question, like, holy crap, like life happens very fast. You're gone very quickly. And every morning I woke up and walked down the hall and saw Gary's mom's room empty. And she was always in that room for 3.5 years. And all of a sudden it was like, poof, it's like, whoa. So I asked the question to myself, like, what am I really doing here? And that got answered in the actual first journey. And I came out of that journey with a new level of devotion and commitment to my clients that I was already working with, to ask the deeper questions, to ask the bigger questions. And then I had thought that that journey was one and done. Like I'm doing this once and never doing this again. And the day after, I was in meditation and I saw myself training with the medicine man. And I was like, oh boy, here we go. And that's where I'll typically pass it off to Gary. And
Yeah, when Robert came home, the transition or the transformation that occurred was crazy. I looked at him and mushrooms can do this, and sure enough, they did. So I spoke to the medicine man, and I thought, well, maybe I can shift the depression, grief, and the bit of anxiety that I was going through. And I booked in with him, and it just happened to be over the weekend that we were spreading my mother's ashes, and it was my birthday. So I always say it was the best birthday gift one can ever give oneself was to go on a mushroom journey. And it relieved the depression and the grief. Anxiety had gone. I come back into my full strength, into my purpose and direction in life. I came home and said to Robert, I had these visions and this imagery that happened in the journey that I think we're supposed to work with this medicine. We looked at each other as like, how do we incorporate this into our work, into what we're doing in the world? And so we spoke to the medicine man and asked him maybe he could guide us or train us or um, uh, well, direct us in the correct direction on how we would be able to guide other people in our way,
mhm.
since he had his way. And so that was when the Journeymen Collective was created. We embarked on a journey to lead journeys and guide journeys for others.
It's interesting to me. I lost my very suddenly. He had an accident and I flew home and I saw him, but I've been left with that feeling. I've gone through a grief journey myself, but that feeling of like, where did he go? And it's really shifted something in me. But what happens? Do
Mhm.
you see it? Do you see like what happens that connects that in your mind?
So I would say it's mind, body, and soul. And I love the question because I don't think anyone's ever asked us that question. Um, it's a letting go. So the space is, and this is the difference between a trip and a journey. A journey really respects all levels of the human being because who you are on this current Zoom call and audio recording is not the full being of who we are. And it allows us to essentially clear out any static, clear out any noise, clear out any emotions that no longer serve us. The grief will still be there. It'll come back in waves, but it's not like this wet, heavy blanket that's holding us down from feeling that connection. So your dad, Gary's mom, she is always with us. She leaves dimes everywhere for us. And we find them everywhere in the most bizarre places. And we have a little crystal here, but there's three of the dimes that we found.
Amazing.
One of them was the dime that we found when we first moved into our home and center that we're living in now. And so the space is created to allow you to let go of those emotions, let go of the pain that you're holding in your heart, let go of the pain that you're holding in your neurological system. And then as a consequence of that, the myofascia, the whole physicality opens up, which allows the divine current of the cosmos to flow through you more easily so that you can receive information. We're always receiving information in various forms, but I think the grief and depression blocks it out, and then we don't feel connected to it, and we may feel like we're lost. Did you want to add?
I think how how do we relieve the depression and grief? No, it doesn't disappear. You know that. The what happens, the connective uh, line of thought around the situation is if you look at a diameter and do the size of a totem pole and how the width of that is the bandwidth that you're giving information to the grief of the loss of our parents as time goes by. And we believe psilocybin does assist this. It decreases the diameter width of energy that you're giving to the story about your father or mother dying. And then you don't relive it every day. You don't hang on to it. You know, it's there. It is always there, but the current or the diameter of the width bandwidth is lessened.
Okay.
Okay.
And people don't just come to you though for grief, like they come to
No.
you for all sorts of growth, right? And you probably have people coming to you in various states of consciousness. Some people who think we're in a purely physical world, and some
Mhm.
people who understand a bit about the connection. So, can you just talk to me a little bit about that, the different stages and how that works?
Has your doctor told you that you're too young for perimenopause, but you know you just don't feel like yourself? You are not alone. Perimenopause can start earlier than you think. That's why Menolabs is here, to support you with a range of products and the information you need to confidently speak up and get the care you deserve. They also offer science-backed products like their bestseller, MenoFit, a probiotic designed to help relieve symptoms like hot flashes and night sweats and more, all while supporting your overall health and wellness. Don't settle for less. Visit Menolabs and get the support you need today. Right now, they're offering our Hotflash Inc. listeners 20% off using code HOTFLASH20 at menolabs.com. Now for the small print, this statement has not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Yeah, another great question. And like we could probably talk about it on that topic for a good hour. Again, we meet everyone where they're at. Most people like they'll go to our website and some people even show up on calls and like, I don't even know how I got here. I filled out your application and I don't even know how I found you. I just found myself searching for something and you guys popped up. And so with us, it's not just a psilocybin journey. There's a lot of guidance involved in like all of the different tools, all the different courses and trainings and education that we've received. It's all coalesced into like what's known as the Journeymen Collective. So we pull from the scientific, we pull from the metaphysical, we pull from the shamanic, we pull from the healing arts, we pull from all these different realms to help each of the individuals that come and work with us. And yeah, everyone's at a different space, everyone's at a different level. And what we try to do in our group journeys is we try and place people that are in similar situations or they've had similar pasts. Abuse might be a trend that's in a group that's coming together. We may not necessarily vocalize it, but there may be a history of that. And then as a result, people are experiencing similar things in their relationships in the now that are tied to that. So we look for themes and trends with the people and then place them into groups. And then we respect everyone for where they're at. Like if someone has a grand awareness of the different dimensions of the cosmos, then we respect that. And if someone's like just popping up into this thing that we call unity consciousness or an awareness of the quantum, or some people may even say an awareness of their guides. It's nuanced and we respect everyone for where they're at. There's no force involved. However, we're going to show up with a really high level of respect and honor and integrity for each and every individual to honor their highest potential. And that's one of the gold standard, or sometimes we call it the platinum standard because it's above the gold standard, in really truly setting that bar of excellence for people. And then when you set that bar really high, it allows other people to sort of move into whatever space they need to be in, and then they attune to their excellence for where they're at, and then they get to go out and, like, the biggest resounding message that we hear from people is like, I want to help people. And it's like, yeah, that's the intrinsic desire of every human being on the planet. And so it's taking that really broad idea and focusing it in like a laser, like, well, what does your helping others look like? Is it creating art? Is it creating a business? Is it creating um, some sort of foundation, and or is it just a new level of leadership within your own self that you get to share with others? So it's most people who find us are typically already on the path of personal discovery, and they know there's something more and they do not know how to access it. They've hit like this ceiling and they're like, I don't know what else to do. I've read all these books. I've done all the things. I've done all the biohacking. I've done all the things that I can do, but there's still something missing and I can't quite get there on my own. So that's where a guided journey can come in and help support that individual.
Okay, so if they're curious, but they're listening to you and going, quantum, cosmos, guides, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
What's
No,
the what's the ABC on that? Like, what's the, like, don't freak out, but
Mhm.
there's probably more than we think there is involved in this planet.
well, they know, but they don't know how to talk to people about it.
Mhm.
Right.
So and then they just somehow come across the Journeyman Collective and going, they speak some language that I'm speaking inside my head, but not in general public. And then when we speak to them online, we get to know who they are, engage the quality conversation on what level we can take it. Do you take it to the Federation or do you just keep it at Earth level? There's
Yeah, yeah.
and then as time goes on, they develop and they expand their knowledge, and their bandwidth of information is now being, oh, yeah, so this is what happens to me. But I always thought it was just a coincidence.
Right.
Yeah. Because the medicine meets you, the medicine is nature. We are nature. So the medicine of psilocybin meets you where you're at, innately knows what you can handle. We have that sense as well of like what you can handle as well. And then we just help people to, like, whatever they experience in their journeys, we help them, and this is a big part of the work that we do. We help them actually understand it or have tools in their toolkit to move forward with so that you will understand it if you're supposed to. And we often tell people that you're given a data set in your journeys, and it's like a data set of information that you may not have any idea, like, what the heck was that? How do I explain that? And that's where you can revere that experience. And it's like a giant zip file that you're given, and you get to unzip that file little by little in your own exploration and discovery of your own awareness, and you get to learn from it. But then the learning is applied and implemented into your life so that it's not just, oh yeah, I saw some things and that happened. No, it's actually it's sacred intelligence that's being given to you so that you can know more about yourself and you can create based on where you're at in your life. So it's And we tell people like pay attention to the books that you're going to gravitate towards. It'll hold answers for you, and pay attention to the people that are asking the deeper questions of you. And I think the other part to all of that too is like if you think that the only thing that's real is that which you see with your five senses, then that's your starting spot. It's like, okay, ask a question of that. I see the valley out in front of our home right now, and it's like, well, is this all there is? I wonder what else is out there. And if you really like go to YouTube and just like Google like video of Earth and the cosmos, and like it'll show you a whole process of like zooming out from one person to a city to a country to the globe to the solar system to the galaxy and beyond. And then it's like ask a question of that. It's like, wow, we're pretty tiny. Like, what are we all really doing here? There must be
More.
more. And it's, I think the pinpoint in what we're talking about here is be curious about everything and be curious about what else you have come here for in this lifetime.
Well, I wanted to talk to you, because I ended up doing mushrooms on a weekend in Ottawa. And I had the same thing. Oh, like high school, and I don't want to do that again. And my friend said, no, 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 like this will be great. And it was a great weekend. And I felt a profound shift in myself,
Hmm.
and struggles that I had had. But for women going through like midlife and perimenopause and this sort of like heroine's journey that they have, I sometimes wonder if with everything going on and not and having the questions and not answering them, like shoving them away, what that does to a person. I wondered what you guys thought about that. And it's not just a female thing. I know this happens with men as well, but I wondered what you thought about that.
I think, oh gosh, again, there's so many things in that question as well. So brilliant question again. I think when we start to listen to this body, this thing that we call a body, it is like it's a divine piece of technology that the natural forces of the universe has coalesced the matter of who you are, and it's coalesced the matter of your being. And we often say that human beings are like sandcastles. One minute we're here, and the next minute someone touches it, and poof, we're gone. What is that? That's a whole nother conversation. But in this context, there's innate intelligence within the body that can actually support the process of going through menopause, perimenopause, if we really start to listen to the body. However, we have to ask the questions. Ask the question, the answer will always be shown. So I think, like, heck, I'm always, for your listeners, there are two men on the other end of this podcast, and I'm always in awe of the potent power of the female body that, like, I'm covered in goosebumps right now. It coalesces matter into the form of human beings. Like when you really think about that, and we often say one of our taglines for our business is raising up soul community. Like women have this system within their body. Obviously, it needs the male counterpart, or well, not necessarily. It just needs the sperm in this case to create that. Um,
Yeah.
so it's raising up, like you're raising that sandcastle of that human being. And when we can actually attune to that, like I'm waving my hand in front of my heart right now, and when we can attune to that deeper level of intelligence, because we often say that most of humanity is running around with the soul wetsuit, the wetsuit of their soul just around their head, and they have it stuck around their shoulders, and they can't quite pull it down around their heart to access the heart intelligence. And when they do that, it's like, oh my gosh, there's a new database available to me of intel that I've forgotten about. And finally someone has come along and connected me to that. And now I get to foster that connection with the heart and the mind. And it's an awakening process of honoring that absolutely magnificent technology that, like, for your listeners, like, look at your hands, look at your feet, look at your legs, look at your body. It's freaking phenomenal what this thing does on a daily basis. So, did you want to add something to that?
It's about male and female, the women going through perimenopause, etc. There is, it's like sometimes,
That I love that. That's one of the things I try to speak against, right? Talking so much about symptoms and making, like I know it's the reality is you don't feel very good some
yeah.
of the time, but I think the focus on the misery, I can see how it works for a lot of people. And I worry a lot about talking too much about it for that
Mm.
reason.
It's comes to attention, doesn't it? It's what we give the energy to. So if you're in a state of depression and that's all that's running in your system, totally get it. How do I bring myself out of it? What is other than medication? Medication does not resolve the situation because there's a root, and the medication never gets to the root. It's just a mask. So the idea is, find someone,
Mhm.
anyone that you can talk to about what's going on and work through. Talk therapy is good. We always hear from our clients, 10 years of talk therapy were completed in 4 days with the Journeymen Collective. So
Wow.
as like, we understand talk therapy and we really support it in the beginning stages of the issue that is going on. But if you're doing talk therapy for 6, 7 years and they're ripping over the Band-Aid every time, the idea is like, okay, I'm going to close that Band-Aid and find an alternative method called self to
Mhm.
work through it. Because when you really think about it, it's created within.
Yeah.
Everything is created within. So if I created it, I can uncreate it.
The symptoms
Yeah.
are like little yellow flags on the play. I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, look here, pay attention here. Your body's
Yeah.
talking to you.
Yeah.
And it's like we believe that the body is like the most amazing, fantastic pharmacy on the planet. And we can learn how to, like, again, through the technology of this human being, of this meat suit, we can learn how to use it to regulate all of our hormones, all of our chemicals, um, all of our natural ways to heal. So and like 20 plus years ago, I went through a very deep, dark depression, went through a healing crisis, and it was meditation. It was working with a naturopath, working with an acupuncturist. I had a team that supported me. And now that team is different. And it's also asking the body too. I think like we have a full cupboard, excuse me, excuse me, a full cupboard or apothecary of supplements and a lot of different things. And some of the people are like, wow, you take all these every day? It's like, no. We listen to our body of like, what does it want to receive today? And then like based on what we're feeling, what we sense. So it's building that sensory awareness of like, oh, that my body, mind, and soul wants this level of support. And it changes every single day.
It's vitally important to listen to the words that are coming out of your mouth. It's true,
Mhm.
or what you're hearing and receiving. So understand that you can change the dialogue anytime and break the old habits of thinking and speaking. And once you're aware of that, of the language that is coming out, is like, I can reword that
Mhm.
and re-express and express differently. The body energetically changes from the dialogue that your conversation inside and outside through your words.
Well, I'm thinking of a person who's angry and posting on social media about how bad their perimenopause is. And they're like, it's easy for you to say because you're a man and you don't
Yeah.
know. Right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I interviewed these two beautiful women who run Red School. It's a menstrual awareness program. They're awesome. And one of them said they think the reason that women are suffering so much is this disconnection from their body. And I thought that was so interesting, right? Because you have tribes in Africa, the Hasdas, that are one of the last living sort of, not like we do, like living as we used to, and they don't even have they don't have any symptoms, they don't have menopause, they don't. So when I'm hearing you talking, it's like, yeah, it's easy for you to say, but the connection, I think, to our bodies is bringing us here, and people who are working with women see that, and the lack of connection and the connection could bring you out of it if you let it.
Yeah, because then you're going to be listening differently to your body. And so for the person who's deeply angry, I would ask, like, what's under the anger? It's probably a deep level of sadness that people haven't shown up to help. Because and like we just worked with lovely, lovely soul. So many people in her life had told her, like, you need some help. There's something going on. You're really angry all the time. And it turns out that it had nothing to do with anger, was just the surface expression of a lifetime of baggage that was being held onto, that was connected to sadness because no one had shown up for her to create the space to let go of all of the moments of sadness that had occurred for her. And as a result, it was like exploding into the world as anger. And does anger have a place? Absolutely. There's sacred rage that you can have. It's like, what are you creating with it? Are you honoring destruction, or are you honoring creation? So like, two of the main rules that we speak about in our work is, one, know thyself. Know you, not someone else. So if someone comes along and says, this isn't who you are, that's not their job. It's my job to know me. And then second is, what are you co-creating with the ingredients that are being given to you in your life? And there's some aspect, I think, like we have a lot of women that support us and in our team. And I think there's a return to the whole sacred way of connecting to the body as you're actually going through your cycle. And like, I've seen it, I've even felt it in one of our team members recently, where when she was going through the whole support structure in a journey, like, she was processing through a massive menstrual cycle, and she was like, what is going on? Part of part of what she recognized is that there was a sacred shedding taking place from lifetimes. It was ancient familial shedding of the old. And so I think we're at a massive precipice in life as being human, where there's a return to the sacred. And it's nothing to be scared of. There's only one letter difference of scared to sacred, or sacred to scared. And I think our culture has demonized and made it too woo to honor life as being sacred, when it actually is. Like, every single person that's going to listen to this, every human, there's a sacred part of self that's yearning to be reconnected with. And there's a mystery to life that we haven't figured out, but we're curious about it. And like, heck, like, what are we all doing here on this little planet? And we go about life and we do these things and we're so serious about it, and we're going through this path of enlightenment, and it's like, it's very serious business, when it's actually, when you actually think about it, it's lighten up. So how can we lighten up as we go through this, and just honor the person before you? Have no idea of the stories, like the stories that we have heard of what people have grown through and gone through in their lives. It is
We have 6.5 years of stories.
Holy.
Yeah. What's like a really good one that you can tell me?
Um,
I know it's hard to choose.
Yeah.
yeah. As soon as you mentioned that, like I think there was a gentleman that we worked with, and he was abused, straight out of the womb up until his early teens, and just impregnated with fear from his abuser, and everything that he created in his life was through the lens of fear. And he had created brilliant things, but then he came on a journey and he realized that that way had to give way to something greater. And he had been in communication with different people and who were speaking about the quantum and speaking about this other version of reality that's available to people. And he had this inner calling to explore it. And he was probably what I would say is stuck in three-dimensional reality or Cartesian reality. And he came through the journey, and this is quite common for a lot of people, no matter if they've been abused or have had a great life. They come to this place within self where a lot of the abuse has fallen away. That you're not going to forget it, but the energetic, emotional, mental anguish charge around it is now typically cried away. Um, and that's the other thing, people are given that space to just like cry it out and clearing out all of that trauma from the system, from the mental, emotional, spiritual being, physical being as well. And then coming onto this other side of recognizing that, oh, that piece of me that I was looking for isn't out there. It's inside of me. And there's a vast, multi-layered dimensional reality that's available to me in every waking moment of life. And all I have to do is close my eyes and go inside of myself and explore it and connect with it. And as a function of that, that individual left with one of the things that he shared was, I'm not sure what this feeling is, but I think it's what they call peace.
Mm.
And it was the first time that he had experienced that in his life.
Wow.
Yeah. And so then we teach people, it's like, remember this moment because that's a touchstone moment. We can recall the dramas and traumas of yesterday and yesteryear and talk about them ad nauseum. But do we ever really focus on like, oh my gosh, you remember that really epic moment in my life when I remember this part of me? And then like, how do I
So true. That's
how
so
do I
true.
translate that into my reality as opposed to being stuck on the record player of like, oh, this person wronged me and that person wronged me. And there's just, again, our culture doesn't support yet a full embrace of that inner reality of self so that you can truly heal. And that's part of why we're doing what we're doing, because we recognize that the mystical aspect of living has been sort of taken away. The sacred part of living a life has been plucked out of our society and deemed to be woo, or even the idea that someone could work with their own energy every day and decrease their symptoms and like work with how they think and choose how they want to feel and really start to focus on that. And then as a function of that, the symptoms will disappear. And I haven't gone through perimenopause or menopause. However, I've gone through depression and I know that you can move through it naturally. You can create something different.
It's also interesting to me, the more I do work on this, the more I see how people make fun of it. Like it's more obvious to me like, because we all absorb that, right? Before, like that's sort of like a tribal thing. It's at every turn. anyone who does it is mocked. If you were doing one of these journeys, it'll be a storyline in a TV show that like the person they want you to know is nuts did something like this. These things all kind of get in our brain, right? Like on a subtle. Can you just talk about that a little bit? Because you're working in this field that people are sort of actively doing this. And I don't know, you seem like you're pretty chill about it, but how do you deal with it?
We ignore it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't give attention to it. We get the questions, if there's a partner and one of the partners coming for a journey, we sometimes will speak to the other partner that's staying at home. And, the first question is like, are they going to come home different and changed and then want a divorce? It's like, we can't predict anything what's going to happen. All we're going to predict is that we're going to be here to guide you safely in this journey of your life that you're moving through. And when they come home, you will see a massive change. Good? Yes. It always gets better. The relationship always gets better. Are they going to lose their minds? They ask us. No, they're probably going to find more of their mind.
Well, you're supposed to actually lose your
A
mind.
little bit, yeah.
In that,
lose the old.
Yeah, lose the old ways of thinking,
Yeah.
feeling, doing, and being.
Yeah.
And then you're going to go home like, oh, well, I no longer want to do that thing anymore. I no longer want to think that way anymore. So as a function of that, you have lost part of your mind because you're supposed to lose parts of your mind and open up to a more a fuller aspect of your mind and expand into a new way of thinking, being, and doing.
I think it's an uncluttered way of thinking and being and doing. There's so much, you said it, noise around us that we forget to get in tune with ourselves, and we just act out of habits, hanging out with so and so and so and so. We do the lunch and the whole thing. And when you come back from a journey, you go out for the lunch with the same group of people, you're sitting there, I don't connect to any of these people anymore. I am not way beyond, but I've evolved, and I will show them as much as I can, and hopefully some of them will come on the journey with me. But most of them are afraid to step into the world of discovery of self. So they'll basically pull away as you move forward in your life. So your group, your energetic being changes and evolves.
There's a bit of loneliness there.
Yes.
Maybe while you experience that. I have experienced that too.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was just going to add that it's decreasing the amount of noise or the inputs. Like our society is like most people have a cell phone in their hand from the time they wake up to the time they go to bed. There's a TV on, there's a radio on, there's inputs. There are so many inputs happening that it's like if you could just decrease the inputs for a while and really like cut that noise down so that you can like, hey, like, wait a minute. What if an actual guided journey would actually serve me, my relationships, and my health, and the emotional connection that I have with other people? Like, why not? And then if you dial it right back, a mushroom, it's a freaking mushroom that grows in the bloody forest. And what does it do? Fungi. What does the grand kingdom of fungi do? It decomposes that which is no longer necessary. And the human is like, but I want to hold on to this baggage because it's so comfortable and it's so who I am. When it's like, no, you can let that go. And that's what I think we haven't been taught how to let go of yesterday's stories. And that's what the medicine will do, whether you like it or not. And that's what people are afraid of. Like, who am I going to be if I let this go?
Truer self when you leave the Journeymen Collective. You're going to be, clear and open to receive. You'll be more aware of your environment and all around you, and you'll be able to make conscious choices other than habitual choices of responding and reacting to life.
Yeah. And then the lonely part, I think one of the number one things that people are coming to us for is connection. And it's they're lonely because they haven't connected with self. at that deeper level. And that's why I went on my very first journey. Is like there's something missing, something isn't quite there yet. And I remembered a deep, vast part of myself. And then connection to self, which then allows connection to others, which then also allows for a connection to this thing called life on this little speck of dust known as Earth. Um, so it's that we hear a lot of people who are lonely. Um, and then to me, it's like if those words are coming out, it's like what's required of my being to connect? What does that
Well,
look like?
the readjustment and maybe in your social circle after an
Yes.
experience like
Yeah.
this, I guess you could think it would be lonely, but I have gone through that myself, and it's not it's not the same. It's a different thing. It's just a sort of strange feeling of things not working. But I feel like the lonely feeling is when you have a big social circle and you don't feel like you're connecting in there. I don't know. Do people talk about this?
Yeah. It's the norm that this is the way that I was normal, well, quotes, air quotes. And that way of being is just what society has dictated what it is to have friendship and connection with groups. So you're part of a group and part of that collective, and you're all there and you're all doing your thing. But when you finish with the journey and go back to that group, as I said before, you have a different set of eyes and ears and listening skills, and they'll either see there's a massive change in you. What have you done? We want the same thing. Or they will retract back and go back into the darkness and leave the circle. And so your circle will expand as time goes on. You'll attract those that you want to really hang around with.
Do you hear of people who go back? Not, I know that's not what you meant, but
Yeah.
do people have this experience and then say, "Oh, I was doing great, but then now I'm right back to my old ways"?
Rarely that happens. People will forget different pieces that they experienced, and then we're there to gently like give them a gentle slap upside of the head in a loving way to basically say, "Hey, do you remember this part of your journey?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that." And do you remember how you felt? And so it's more about people will forget that they have a tool belt around their waist of different tools to use on a daily basis. And the number one thing is like their own awareness of like, oh, well, I feel depressed and like depression's back again. Like, oh, crap. When in actuality, depression is just, for the most part, depression is the universe is giving you a package of creative energy, and you're still stuck on the old version of you that doesn't know how to work with that, and it's asking you to create something different. And I think I forget who said it, but someone said depression is typically there because you're sick of being yourself. And you're sick of being the old self, and the new self is like in this cocoon that wants out. And when you actually learn to chip away at that and ask yourself, what am I to create with this feeling? It will start to happen. The depression will start to ease. So it's recognizing that, hey, I have tools and I've just forgotten that I had the tools or I have the tools. And
We stay connected with our clients from 6 years ago. And it's like we get the ping to give them a call or a Zoom link, and or they'll do the same thing. It's like, oh, I was just thinking about you. And it's like, okay, let's jump on a call. And then it's like a refresher with Rob and Gary. It's like we're there as your reminder. It's like, remember the pathway forward. And it's like, oh, I forgot about that. Oh, I remember that thing. Oh, just the one word will trigger them back into their new way of being other than the old habits, because we know habits are very hard to break. So it's you have to train or retrain yourself on thinking, being, and doing. Yeah.
These are luxury retreats that you offer. Therefore, so not everyone can access this kind of thing. They don't have the time or the funds. What's your advice for someone who's curious to try and at least do something?
Search.
Yeah. Know who you are going to be guided by. There's a vast difference between a trip sitter and a guide. Guides will have a full awareness of what the individual is going through on the spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. A sitter will typically just be there to hand you a tissue because you're crying. Um, and so just know who you're actually going to be working with, know their experience and where they're coming from, and like spend the time. Don't just click on a button and enroll in a journey. Like we've heard stories of people like, oh yeah, I enrolled in a retreat and then I showed up and I didn't even realize it was a mushroom retreat and 2 hours after arriving we're in a journey and I wasn't prepared. So be prepared, make certain that there's preparation, immersive support during your in-person, and also integration support afterwards. And like in our work, our offerings, the ceremony is a very small part of what you're actually coming to experience. So it's, yeah, do your research. There's a grand phenomena out there that, which I think is a offshoot of the pharmaceutical industry that, oh, the medicine is just a quick fix. I can go in for a 5 hour ceremony, come out, and I'll praise the Lord, I've been healed, and I don't need to do anything with it. When that's the fast food pharmaceutical ideology coming into play there. Um, so for your listeners, if someone's offering you just that, find someone else who's going to be more supportive. Um, so the support is so key.
Are there risks?
That you're going to know yourself more. Uh, you're gonna lose parts of yourself that no longer are needed. Psilocybin is one of the safest medicines that you can use. It only works with the serotonin receptors in the brain. So cardiovascularly, there's very little, like emotionally, you may have an increase in heart rate, but the medicine itself isn't necessarily going to cause it. It's typically more from emotional turmoil. So it's one of the safest medicines that you can be with. And yeah, and then for your listeners, like when we guide people, typically they're in essentially a meditative state. They're laying in stillness, they're laying in silence, they're listening to music that we play through iTunes. And yeah, there's a shedding of the old, there's a deeper connection to self, and then there's an expanded level of awareness that you get to honor potentially for the rest of your life. A lot of our people will come through one journey with us and be like, wow, I'm not sure I ever need to come back. Like I've got so much to work with that they're excited to work with.
Is it legal?
It's in a gray area,
Mm-hmm.
and our standard answer to that is that it's a mushroom that grows in the forest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that answer.
And another thing for your listeners to understand is if they are seeking out guidance in a journey, ask them where they source their medicine
Oh,
and
okay.
where it's grown, what is the medicine they're using, the strain, what is the dosage, and there are protocols around it, the handling of it. There's so much to know before stepping into a journey. And even, some people say, oh, I can do it on my own. I said, yeah, we've heard stories of doing it on your own. But if you truly want to move through anything in your life, guidance is the key factor in the process of working with the mushroom.
Well, I can't thank you enough for telling me all about it. I feel like this is a magical conversation that I needed. I just felt like I needed a little reminder of what the world is actually
Yes.
a part of.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
And the Journeymen Collective .com if people want to know more, and they can reach out to you and ask questions and everything.
Yeah, you can follow us on Instagram, and we're in LinkedIn also, and our website.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Anne-Marie.
Annemarie.
Thanks.
Hotflash Inc. was created and is hosted by Annemarie McQueen, produced and edited by Sonia Mack. The information contained in this podcast is intended for informational purposes only and is not intended for the purpose of diagnosing, treating, curing, or preventing any disease. Before using any products referenced on the podcast, consult with your healthcare provider, read all labels, and heed all directions and cautions that accompany the products. Information received through the podcast should not be used in place of a consultation or advice from a healthcare provider. If you suspect you have a medical problem, i.e. menopause or anything else, or any healthcare questions, please promptly see your healthcare provider. This podcast, including Annemarie McQueen and any producers or editors, disclaim any responsibility from any possible adverse effects from the use of any information contained herein. Opinions of guests on this podcast are their own, and the podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about a guest's qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. This podcast is owned by Hotflash Inc. Media.